We're here with Global Atlanta, and we have a guest today. Would you please introduce yourself for our readers?
Yes, good morning, Mike. My name is Norman Houston, and I'm the Director of the Northern Ireland Bureau, which is essentially the representative office of the Northern Ireland government in the United States.
Okay, and what brought you to Atlanta today?
Well, I was invited to speak at lunchtime today to the Irish Chamber of Commerce in the World Trade Centre, and I'm expecting about 40 executives from Atlanta-based companies to come along, and my story or my presentation is going to be about the new Northern Ireland and the great business opportunity that we will offer to US companies interested in investing in the European Union.
Okay. And when you say the new Northern Ireland, what do you mean by that?
Well, I suppose I mean it's the Northern Ireland that has come about after the re-establishment of our government on the 8th of May 2007. And it's an opportunity to tell Americans that Northern Ireland is very much looking to the future. We have a very strong executive government in office in Belfast, and people are beginning to see a real difference in Northern Ireland in terms of the economy, employment levels, tourism, and just the general fabric of Northern Ireland society is improving dramatically.
Mm-hmm. And this establishment of government, that was a big changeover from the political stalemate that had previously existed in Northern Ireland. Is that fair to say?
Yes, indeed. I mean, we had an earlier form of devolution which ended in 2002, and we had a period of some 5 years where the politicians went back to negotiate on a new deal, for want of a better word. And at St Andrews in Scotland, earlier in 2007, the major parties came to an agreement about re-entering government together, and that new government was formed on the 8th of May 2007.
What do you think was the biggest factor in bringing about that agreement to form a new government?
It's difficult to point to one specific factor which led to the agreement. I think what happened was that politicians dealt very, very effectively with the key issue of security, for example, in terms of overall support by the political parties for the police service of Northern Ireland, and that there was a general feeling between the leaders of the parties that they were ready to do a political deal which would bring back locally devolved government in Northern Ireland. I think essentially it was that the negotiations had worked very well. They had been very well supported by our own Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, also by the Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister, and with a lot of support from the United States. And I think there was a number of factors came together more or less at the one time which allowed the politicians to make that final decision to re-enter power together.
Okay. And since the establishment of that government, Northern Ireland has become the fastest growing economy in the United Kingdom. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed it is. I mean, in 2006, for example, we don't have the final figures yet for 2007, our economy grew by 5.6%, which is quite dramatic in Northern Ireland terms, and we outstripped the rest of the United Kingdom. We also have seen significant increases in employment levels in Northern Ireland, quite a lot of overseas investment, and really even if you look at areas such as the cost of domestic housing, residential housing in Northern Ireland has increased dramatically. And in addition to that, we have a very large number of Eastern European migrant workers arriving to take up jobs in our company. So generally speaking, the Northern Ireland economy has performed very well over the past 2 to 3 years.
Okay. And how closely is this economic growth tied to the political situation, do you think?
Well, I think that to have got where we are today without having our own government and political stability would probably have been more difficult. I mean, I think any business that wants to invest in an area like Northern Ireland wants to be assured of security, the availability of labour, a good a package of assistance from the local enterprise development board, etc. But certainly political stability has got to be an absolute must. And the fact that we have this new power sharing executive, which is a very strong focus on the economy. Just a few months ago, the government published its first programme for government, what it was going to do over the next 3 years, and also the budget that it was going to make available to deliver on those objectives. And at the very, very centre of that whole document, which is a very thick document, is the economy. And obviously the fact that we have, as I said earlier, a power sharing executive which is very focused on delivering for the people of Northern Ireland, and with the economy as its central theme, I think that is encouraging for investors from outside Northern Ireland to look very seriously at what we've got to offer.
And you mentioned that Northern Ireland is a great location for overseas companies who want to export to Europe. Do you see Atlanta and Georgia as a good place for Northern Irish companies to enter the U.S. market?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I think that there has been a tendency for many years to look at the northeastern seaboard, New York, Boston, maybe to a lesser extent Philadelphia, in terms of Northern Ireland companies wanting to sell their products in the United States. I think that we need to do a lot more to look at this area, the southeast of the United States. I mean, I was reading some statistics last night to show this is one of the fastest growing regions of the United States, and I think that it has been overlooked for a number of years, and that for Northern Ireland companies to come to somewhere like Atlanta, for example, to a trade fair or whatever, and vice versa, if companies in the Atlanta area wanted to go to Northern Ireland, I think there's tremendous opportunities to improve that link. But I think it can only be done on a regular basis. I don't think it's a one-off thing that one comes once a year and does some business and goes again. The continuity of the relationship has to be key, and of course the product and the price has got to be right as well.
Mm-hmm. And there have been growing ties between Northern Ireland and Georgia, including a trip by Governor Sonny Perdue to Northern Ireland last summer. You mentioned continuity in the relationship. Do you think that there will be more exchanges like that of political and business leaders, and do you know of any that are scheduled right now?
Yes. Well, I don't know of any schedule now, if any future trips are planned. I would be very keen, really, in my position representing Northern Ireland here, to increase the strength of relationships between Georgia and Northern Ireland. I think first and foremost they have to be based on a sensible business need or business opportunity. There are a lot of cultural and historical links with this part of the United States and Northern Ireland, particularly through those people who are from the Scots-Irish tradition, people whose ancestors would have left what was then the province of Ulster in Ireland to move to the United States in the early 1700s through basically through the 18th century. So there are lots of cultural links there. What I would like to see is strengthening those cultural links and turning them into more business opportunities in terms of trade and investment. And that there is a lot of work that we could be doing in Northern Ireland with the state of Georgia. Because Northern Ireland's a very small place, and to deal with the whole of the United States is just, mind-bogglingly difficult. But if we were able to pick a state like Georgia, which, as I said earlier, has historical links with Northern Ireland, and to work in some way where we can have mutually beneficial relationships, what we see in these relationships is that the state of Georgia, and indeed the city of Atlanta, gets as much out of that relationship as we do in Northern Ireland. It's not a one-way street. It might be in the area of economic development and investment, but it could equally be about the exchange of students from the universities in Northern Ireland, with Emory University here in Atlanta. And there's lots of opportunities for building mutually beneficial relationships, which don't all have to be based on Northern Ireland, benefiting and Georgia not benefiting.